130 million coffee seedlings distributed across all the coffee growing regions of the country. Honorable Chair, I would like to emphasize that we have seen a big increase in uptake of coffee seedlings, especially in northern Uganda, while in other regions we have seen a drop. And for purposes of affirmative action, northern Uganda will continue giving them support in both Robusta and Arabica coffee, while central and part of western and southwestern we are going to scale down on aerate Robusta coffee seedlings while promoting coffee wilt disease resistant material. Honorable Chair, the 2 pages are illustrating the interventions we are doing. The 3 main, no gender bias intended. The 3 main are demonstrating the coffee gardens we are talking about, the coffee wilt disease resistant material. These plantlets these bushes are the ones where we'll be harvesting to graft more clones and thus providing farmers with coffee wilt disease resistant plantlets. While the next page is showing the good agronomic practices, mulching, and also use of shade trees, while the other picture with the farmers crowded around the coffee trees shows the rehabilitation or cloning these all the coffee trees which were planted by our parents or grandparents. In terms of northern Uganda, within the coffee sector, this is an affirmative action and we continue to treat it as a separate program. And in this case, we provided the seed to nursery operators in Arua, Guru, Oyam, Kore, Amuru, Omoro, Kitugum, and Agago. We also provided coffee seedlings to nursery operators, while we also provided Arabisia coriaria, which is a shade tree. These are local trees in northern Uganda which are promoted to provide shade and mitigate climate change. We also provided banana. We also provided banana suckers. We have not provided reflected here in detail, but that's in terms of the shade trees and banana suckers. These are a must whenever we are providing farmers with coffee seedlings in northern Uganda. We deliver it as a package. Honorable Chair, another program is on value addition and generic promotion. This is an area which we need a lot of support because it is an area that is going to unlock the transformation of the coffee sector in Uganda when we are exporting roasted coffee, processed coffee, but also promoting our own coffee to consume it domestically. We trained the roasters, 6 of them, on how to roast. There are different ways depending on the taste of the farmers and other consumers, we may have to train them so that they know the correct roasting profile. Otherwise, we may have over-roasted coffee and we lose the taste and the aroma of our coffee. We also trained them on the brewing methods and also troubleshooting of the machines they use. In this period we focused on Kampala but also in Kasese. Moving forward, we'll be training in eastern Uganda and northern Uganda so that the roasters in those regions can also be equipped with good roasting capacities, and also, as we will be providing the budget, we will be providing with some roasting machines in these regions. We are bringing the youth in coffee, especially at the end of the value chain, and in these institutions, Makerere and the Chambago University, we have formed the coffee clubs, and we train them in basic quality control. This is a course that gives many jobs, especially working with the private sector, but also in UCDA when we recruit staff. This is a requirement we request for the applicants to have, and therefore we are building capacity for those who are going to be joining the coffee sector in the near future. Honorable Chair, honorable members, we also continue to create awareness among the stakeholders about the coffee standards. Uganda is sponsoring the East African Coffee Standard, specifically for Robusta. I would like to report that the recent meeting we had in Bujumbura, they adopted our standard, and because it is adopted at the East African level, we are also sensitizing our stakeholders on how to maintain these standards so that they can be competitive in the market. We also held sensitizations of stakeholders about coffee quality along the value chain, both farmers, traders, primary processors, but also the operation with the creation and the district local government. We also trained farmer groups in the specialty and fine coffees. This is an area, specialty coffee. These are types of coffees. Once handled very well, enters the high-end market. And Honorable Chair, our vision is to see how we can continue enrolling more farmers so that they can access these very high markets, because the specialty and fine coffees attract premium, they attract premium prices. Honorable Chair, we have gone ahead to enter in partnership with the Chinese coffee exchange, where we are going to be auctioning our coffee. And in here, during the 6 months, we received the high-level delegation from China, and it was also reciprocated. And I would like to invite honorable members to participate in the United Coffee Exchange, which is going to take place in March. This is an opportunity for the first time Uganda is going to be a portrait country. What means during that exhibition, the whole world will be looking at coffee. We are going to be having 2 weeks before the exhibition, all the major channels, CNN, Chinese high-level newspapers will be reporting about our coffee, and therefore we expect many buyers all over the world, but particularly in China and the Southeast Asia, to come and focus on our store, and also exchange information, but importantly make orders for our coffee. We are going to have a breakfast meeting in which we are going to invite most of the exporters, particularly the local traders and cooperatives, so that they participate in this exhibition, because it gives a unique opportunity for trading our coffee on the Chinese market. Again, like I said, it's the first time Uganda is a portrait country, and therefore we think this is the best opportunity, especially when we are having our coffee roadmap, that we promise to have big volumes of very high quality and present it to a market as big as China and Asia Pacific. In terms of quality assurance, we certified all the coffees which we exported, and as I mentioned before, we have seen an increment in the coffee volumes being produced in the country, and our team have been working very closely with the private sector to ensure that all the coffee due for export accesses good markets due to the high quality. We continue to train trainers on the benefits of selling quality coffee, but also best practices, coffee regulations, and also quality practices in both Robusta and Arabica coffee growing areas in central, eastern, and western Uganda. We trained baristas and brewers. These are people who prepare good quality coffee. They are the people who work in hotels, restaurants, and cafes, and therefore to maintain a good quality coffee, we need to give them the necessary training. We are continuing to do the training in the coming 6 months to cover the whole country. We also provided opportunities for farmers in the Busoga region to visit Western Uganda to learn some of the best practices, especially working together as a cooperative. Honorable Chair, honorable members, in the budget 2019-20 compared to 2018-19, we provide the breakdown of our budget. Last financial year, we didn't have a provision for wage. I'm happy to note with your support that this financial year we have provision for wage to the tune of 6.9 billion. Non-wage, the current, we had an increment of 17%, and we moved it to 89 billion. Government of Uganda development, last financial year we didn't have a provision, and I'm happy to note that this year we have 483 million for development, and total funding for this financial year is 96.7 billion, which is an increment of 23, almost 24% over the last financial year. Honorable Chair, we have provided a pie chart of how this budget is distributed across the directorates of UCDA, and the big chunk of the money is towards development services, which in our normal speak is looking at production. That's where we have support to farmers through seedlings, establishment of mother gardens, but also extension services. As a breakdown of the budget, the interventions which are going to be covered by development services include value addition, which is mainly looking at primary processing, that is supporting farmers to process their coffee rather than export kiwoko. We are promoting farmers to ensure that they sell kase, or they sell processed coffee. We are also looking at organizing farmers in cooperatives, as our objective is to make sure that farmers are organized, they distribute, they market their coffee as a group, they access inputs as a group. This, we think, is also our work in terms of provision of extension services. Under the development services, we are also providing support for rehabilitation and innovation, that is stamping the old coffee trees to rejuvenate them so that they can increase their productivity. We are also providing support to climate smart intensification. All of us are aware of the climate change that is before us, and therefore we need to support farmers on harvesting water but also mulching, and where possible, providing irrigation. We are also supporting part of the funds appropriated in Parliament is transferred to coffee research at Nakori, and this is provided for under the development services. But also pest and disease control and coordination and partnerships with all the stakeholders we work with. Madam Chair, in terms of quality and regulatory services, our objective is to improve quality, increase domestic coffee consumption, and brand Ugandan coffee. And the intervention to deliver these objectives is to build structured demand in emerging markets, and also brand Ugandan coffee, provide value addition at tertiary level. This is where we will be training baristas, but also training brewers and quality controllers, and overall to provide quality assurance for the coffee being exported out of the country. In terms of strategy and business development, the intervention areas is to support in the provision of coffee statistics, planning, execution, and investments in the coffee sector, but also market intelligence. This is where we look at the prices and provide these prices to the farmers and also the traders. And finally, is where we provide business development services, especially to support farmers to operate as a business. In the corporate services, this is where we look at corporate governance, accountability, and communication. It covers mainly the establishment costs, capital development, wage, but also our subscription to international obligations. I would like to report, Honorable Chair, that in terms of capital development, UCDA is planning to establish a training center in Jinja, where we'll be working with the private sector. Instead of only organizing a few training courses, we'll be having many regular courses in that area, so that we bring more youth in coffee, but also farmers who want to do processing. This is where we'll be training them to increase the value addition. We have some policy shifts in the budget, as I alluded to earlier. One is that we are scaling down the distribution of aerate seedlings and instead promote coffee wilt disease-resistant plantlets. I would like to emphasize that Robusta coffee is propagated by chrono cuttings, but we've been providing aerate seedlings because we didn't have enough of the stock. And if we continue to provide these mother gardens, then we'll no longer be providing aerate, will not be planting aerate seedlings. The implications of this is that whereas it's desired to have the coffee wilt disease-resistant plantlets, they come at higher cost. That means the cost of aerate seedlings has been at 350, and we are going to multiply it 3 times to procure the plantlets. So it's an expensive undertaking, and we request Parliament humbly to support us so that these farmers can access these plantlets and stop planting the aerate seedlings. But also it requires that we'll be certifying all these nursery operators. We want to make sure that whoever is producing these plantlets don't go to harvest them from the bushes. But we have a traceability system showing that these plantlets came from Nakori. They came to a nursery which is certified by both UCDA and Nakori, and that is the same source of seedling that is going to the farmers. We will be also monitoring the yields of these clones, because some of these clones have different yield potentials, and those which are not very promising will be recommending to NACORI to remove them. And then, being a very sensitive technology, we will no longer be having nurseries which they use any materials, but they will be having shade nets. These shade nets are quite expensive. In our budget, we are making a provision to support some of the farmers, those who will be certified to be nursery operators. And also there is a provision to provide water in times when these areas are stressed with water, so that farmers can harvest water, those who are operating the nurseries, and the plant rates come out when they are with vigor and able to withstand the climate stress when they are planted. Another policy shift is towards rehabilitation. I alluded to it. This is stamping the old coffee trees, some of which have been there for over 40 years, and we want to bring some of them in production. For areas where some of these trees, these rehabilitated trees will not be rejuvenating, we'll be doing gap filling, and that's where we will be using the coffee wilt resistant plant rates to fill the gaps on where some of the older trees are not able to sprout into younger shoots. Associated with this will be provision of fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides. Some of these we are not able to be providing to every farmer, but as much as possible we will cover the whole country. And already we have imported some fertilizer which we are going to be providing to cooperatives in each of the regions in the whole country. We'll be also providing toolkits to rehabilitate or to stamp these old coffee trees. It's a technique, but also it requires some special tools. And this is what we are providing as an organization, so that farmers can continually access this technology. Madam Chair, as we transit towards the 20 million bags, we need to look at industrialization. And this is where we are looking at providing farmer registration to organize these farmers and cooperatives, but also funding adjustments so that these farmers can access finances from the circles, but also Microfinance Support Center and the Uganda Development Bank. The issue of policy and regulatory framework, Madam Chair, is, as you mentioned under your brief, is an area we are looking at, and we think it will be a game changer once we have the National Coffee Bill approved. With the ambition we have with the coffee to reach 20 million bags by 2025, it comes with also some challenges of funding. And although there are some areas where we are providing the funding, there are areas where completely we don't have any provision because of the nature of the budget. And our prayer is that through you, Madam Chair, you may recommend to the Budget Committee to provide additional resources, especially in some of these critical areas. First, we are looking at the areas. We are rooted to it. We have up to 122 billion of money which is owed to private nursery operators. This is a lot of money. The Honorable Minister of Finance gave us a letter, a provision to procure on credit, with an understanding that they will be providing additional resources, but these resources are not forthcoming. And it's our humble prayer that the Honorable Chair, through you, Many of these farmers are losing property. Many of these farmers, they even go to hospital and they don't have money, they come to us. And 90% of the phone calls I receive these days is about these payments. And as we move towards the electoral period, this will be an area many of you, they will be coming to you. And through you, Madam Chair, we are going to give you a breakdown per district, how much money is owed by national operators, so that you have a clear picture on how indebted government is to your voters. Madam Chair, as you are aware, the National Coffee Bill provides for registration of coffee farmers. The consultations you've had in most of the areas you visited, I'm sure they affirmed it to you that this is a good thing to do, to register farmers, and therefore we've made a provision for the financial year that if your committee approves, then we can start on the process. However, the amount is not enough, and we will still come back to you for the support so that all the farmers who are involved in coffee can be able to support the farmers, to train them to reduce these epidemics. Madam Chair, we are also focusing on quality and regulatory services, and we have funding gaps there. I'm happy to note that through partnership with the Chinese government, the Chinese government has provided a plot of land to construct a consulate in Guangzhou, and in that consulate, UCDA is going to have a laboratory, to have a permanent presence in China, so that all the coffees which are exported there, we do a spot check, we make sure that all the Ugandan coffee, as we exported it, is still of the required integrity, so that the market will continue to operate competitively. In this budget, we've made a provision of $50,000, and we have been informed that the breaking of the ground for the construction is in March, and therefore in the coming budget we'll be requesting your support again to see how we can establish this laboratory testing for the coffee. We will also continue to promote our coffee in other markets, especially where we have little presence, especially Eastern Europe, Russia, Korea, and North Africa. Madam Chair, we also have funding gaps in other areas, such as irrigation. This one you are very much aware. We are also looking at other areas of market development, especially as a requirement at the international level. We need to have statistics which are well updated, but also we need to support our studies and the assessment of other markets, emerging markets. With all of that, we need also staff to support farmers, but also support in quality assurance and the other areas under the mandate of UCDA. Madam Chair, our campaign for domestic coffee consumption continues. We have made inroads, but we need to do much more. Countries like Ethiopia, which produce more coffee, they drink half of their coffee, because coffee is healthy, but also it keeps the revenue within the country. It creates jobs, and therefore we will continue providing for domestic coffee consumption, and we need budgetary support to continue with the campaign. And as you recall, in the National Coffee Bill, there is a lot of emphasis on domestic coffee consumption, and if the bill is passed with this provision, we'll be training all the hotels in the whole country. Those who are serving tea or any hot beverage, we need to certify them to ensure that when they are when they are brewing coffee, it is of very high quality, so that we continue enjoying a good cup of coffee, but also the tourists and other visitors who come here mainly also to drink coffee. Madam Chair, we are aware of the cross-cutting issues as provided by the agency in terms of the responsible for equity issues, and one of the cross-cutting issues we are looking at is gender. That is both the youth, the women, and special needs interest groups. And when we are giving out these seedlings, and especially when we look at the establishment of the mother gardens, we want to see how we can recruit as much as possible the youth, that they come in production. We have been talking to some of them who are baristas, and they are training fellow youth to actually come in production, because we are telling them a good cup of coffee starts from production. And also to inform them that there is a lot of money in coffee. You are planning for generations, and many of them have come in play. But also, to your information, women are actually much better than men in tendering for the nurseries, and therefore these mother gardens will prioritize women who are involved in coffee production. Madam Chair, in terms of gender, we are also providing the youth gangs in terms of rehabilitation. This is where we train gangs. We train youth to be involved in stamping. Most of the coffees in our villages are owned by parents who are above 70 years. So we are looking at all the coffee, and we are looking at old farmers. So when we bring the youth and we train them in stamping, it's a source of employment, but also it's providing for sustainability. So the toolkits we are procuring, we are going to be training these youth gangs to be involved in the coffee rehabilitation. In terms of equity, we will continue supporting northern Uganda and the other areas where coffee is a new commodity. We will also look at climate change. We recently, under the Ministry of Agriculture, we recently launched the climate change guidelines, and a big portion of that is looking at coffee, and therefore we'll be providing cross-cutting issues in our interventions, especially when we look at also the breeding of the coffee seed from Nakori, and also provision of the shade trees when we are distributing these seedlings to the farmers. We will also continue to look at areas where coffee can be a good crop in holding the ground, and for experience, especially for when we look at eastern Uganda and the Rwenzori region, which were badly affected by the floods and also landslides, areas where coffee was growing in those gardens, they were not affected, and therefore this is an area we want to continue supporting and see how we can use coffee to stabilize the soil. Madam Chair, we have noted key challenges in the last 6 months. The first and foremost is about the budget provision, which was not commensurate with the demand for seedlings, and this has come with the arrears or delayed payments for the farmers. Some have lost property, some have taken us to court for delayed payments, but without any money. We might lose some of the properties if some of the cases go through. We also have staffing gaps in terms of providing extension services, Most of our staff in the field are looking after 3 to 4 districts. And this means the coffee information, specific information don't reach all the farmers. Much as we are using radio programs to provide this information, there is also need for practical training, and this is where we need support from you so that farmers can continue to get these extension services. However, we are also continuing to work with the district local governments, especially at the sub-county level, to see how we can leverage our expertise. We have produced coffee manuals, which we are, in this quarter, we are hoping to train the trainers of the districts and the local governments at the sub-county level, so that they also have this technical knowledge in coffee, and therefore provide this information to the farmers. The legal framework is the coffee bill, which we hope with your support will be approved, because we are losing good coffee because of the unscrupulous actors and the regulations being very weak. Lastly, but not least, Madam Chair, coffee research in Nakori is really, much as we provide some money, it is grossly underfunded. That's why in the coffee bill, initially we had provided for Coffee Research Trust Fund, which unfortunately was not provided for. But if, again, your committee approves the coffee bill, there is a provision that we can increase the cess, and therefore we can provide additional resources to Nakori, which will be an increment but will still not be adequate. Lastly, the inadequate climate change response capacity is a big challenge, especially with the recent prolonged dry spell, but also followed by prolonged rains. We need to support the farmers so that they can respond to the climate change. As I end, Madam Chair, I end also with a prayer. Even with the challenges, the coffee sector is moving on a trajectory. The performance is increasing. We see more coffee volumes coming up, and I'm sure you will be our witnesses. Most of the farmers are having increased yields. This to us is important to provide more. It's a source of income for the households, but also we see it is going to be a source of revenue for the country. As we explained, there are also a number of funding gaps, and notably the accumulation of areas as of the end of the financial year is crippling many nursery operators who had borrowed money with the hope that government will pay them in time, and this is affecting also the level of production, especially those who are doing coffee wilt resistant material, because they are very expensive. They are expensive undertaking, and therefore, with your support, Madam Chair and the honorable members, we request for an increment in the budget so that we can clear these areas, but also we can meet the targets of the coffee roadmap. Madam Chair, I thank you for this opportunity, and we are available to explain any issues which may not have been very clear, or those which we were not able to explain adequately. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Managing Director, UCDA, for that very elaborate presentation. I also want to thank you very much for being very organized. You see, this is being organized and packaging your ideas very well. Honorable colleagues, credit must be given where it is given. Yes, because when you compare with the current ministry, this is the one, and you see UCDA. So we appreciate you for being very organized. I I want to recognize the presence of colleagues who joined us when we had already started. My vice, thank you for driving all the way from Chenjojo. Honorable Dakabela, Happy New Year, you are welcome. And all the colleagues who joined us here. Honorable members, you have listened to the presentation from UCDA, and I think this is now the time for us to react to any issues of concern. This is our time. And I suggest that we do it within 30 minutes, because another agency is already due. Unless you have so many things about it. I start with you. You are good at looking. Yes, can I start with the vice? And then Honorable Anu, Honorable Akosa.
Okay.
Then OO.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the ED, UCDA, and his team for this presentation. And let me go straight to page 14, under funded priorities. On this one, media and publicity, the indicative figure is 500 million, and the funding gap is 500 million. Then on the next table, there is also another row where there is media agency, and then below it there is advertising and publicity, and billboards. So media agency, billboards, advertising and publicity. Then on the upper table there is media and publicity, and the costs are not the same. So I will need you to clarify that. Why can't you cluster it under one item and then we give it a figure, then we see how we can increase on its budget, because it is a funding gap. Then on the same table, that second one, there is study on the informal coffee inflows and outflows. I don't know how you plan to do this, because I have information that because Uganda offers better prices than Tanzania, Tanzanians are selling their coffee here. They move all the way from Bukoba, from Kagera region, through Butukula, and their coffee finds its way in Uganda. So that one is a problem to our coffee. If ours, if their coffee can be brought here and sold here, it means there is a lot of inflow of other coffees from other countries. Also Congo, they bring their coffee here. So that one can affect our coffee sale. So which plan do you have for that, to safeguard that kind of inflow? Then on the issue of domestic coffee consumption, you did not explain properly how you plan to promote domestic coffee consumption, apart from showing something like the value addition somewhere, which I saw. You did not elaborate the activities that you plan to do to make sure that our people are encouraged to have domestic coffee consumption, because you cited an example of Ethiopia, where almost more than half of their coffee is consumed locally. So we also need to do that. And I have always, and I have continued to talk about the coffee bars, which we need to promote. We need to have coffee bars so that everywhere, maybe in public places like Parliament, airport, elsewhere, we can have coffee so that people can appreciate. Then I would like you to explain to us the relationship you have with OWC. Because you give coffee seedlings to farmers, OWC also distributes coffee seedlings to farmers. Do you distribute through OWC, or those are different entities that give the same seedlings to the farmers? And then you highlighted on the issue of training centers, a training center in Usoga, in Jinja. My idea would be that we should be able to put these training centers in places where they will produce a lot of coffee, like in Bugisu, in Uganda, in Toro, in Ankole. other than going to Soga, the people who are still learning how to grow coffee. We should strengthen. We should strengthen. We should strengthen those places that grow more coffee. Yes, they grow sugarcane. So I would like to have for you to have a training center in Toro, in Karamo, in the other place, Usoga, Bugisu, not Usoga, Bugisu, Buganda, and Toro, then Angola. At least one per region. Then we can, our farmers can be trained. Finally, on this issue of cross-cutting issues on page 15, I didn't hear you talking about water for production. How do you plan to support farmers on providing for them water for production? Because most of them have issues with water. Their coffee gardens are drying up. Do you have it in your plan? I didn't see it in the budget. If you don't have it, I would propose that we have it, so that maybe the farmer groups or these progressive farmers who have plantations can be at least connected to water, so that they can irrigate their gardens. And the last one is on value addition. Can't we have some coffee hallers for farmer groups, so that instead of selling this Kiboko coffee, they can sell coffee that has been at least semi-processed to earn higher prices? I would have loved to see a budget item in this budget where you plan to provide coffee hallers and other processing machines to our farmer groups and other big farmers like Honorable Kahoza who have those gardens, and then they can have their coffee processed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice. UCDA, there is water, there are sodas, we have tea, we have one coffee. Honorable Santa.
Thank you so much. Allow me to thank
Maybe you use them
for the presentation and wonderful before and after, Madam Chair. I got mixed up when we were on page 12.
Yeah, page 11. No, from page 10 when you are talking about key interventions. Some areas you are talking of 2019, 2020, others 2020, 2019 on the tables and the figures. So maybe that is an oversight, you have to correct that. Yes, that is one thing that I noticed. There is a mix-up there. But, and Madam Chair, my first clarification that I want to address is that when you go to page 15, there is accumulated areas of 94.3 billion. But then when you go ahead to the conclusion, on page 16, there is this accumulated areas of 98.3 billion as per 30th December. So which is which? Is this 98.3 the total of so many things, or is it still to the nursery, private nursery operators? You have to be very clear on this, because Madam Chair, I would like us a committee to take on this one very seriously. Because if we are talking of coffee as a very important crop, and the private operators have already supplied, and the government makes UCDA to commit themselves to the farmers, and then they turn around and say there is no money. I think as a committee we have a serious issue here that you have to give us a very clear figure so that we take it on. And going back to page 4, Madam Chair, the first table, you talked about wage. The total release was 50, and the spending was 47.4. And I thought wage, when it's released, is supposed to be spent. Why is it that I'm seeing a gap there?
I would like to get some clarification there that the wage, on the wage we still have some gap. That one is on page 4, that table up. Then, Madam Chair, I would like to also get some clarification on the Arabica versus Robusta. I thought there was some kind of zoning whereby, for example, in the north is very good for Robusta, but I'm seeing sometimes both of these coffees are supplied in all these regions. Because, Madam Chair, at one time somebody was telling me that the north is very good for Robusta, but I see you also supplying Arabica. So some clarification on that, because for me as a leader, I was going telling people that, you know, for us, we are only good at Robusta. So maybe you educate me further. And why are you scaling down in some parts of the country? Are they now fully okay? So much so that we are now, we don't need to bother with them, we have to go north. I also wanted some clarification on that. And then finally, Madam Chair, you said on page 7, they are only men there at the production level. But they, I'm very gender sensitive. There's this scenario where when there's still a lot of work at the initial stages in the gardens, you find the women very much. But when it is approaching the marketing level, that's when you see all the men coming up. And it's my fear that, Madam Chair, I hope Coffee Development Authority, you are also not borrowing from this, that when there is a lot of work, you see the women. But when it's reaching towards the money level, that's when you see the men coming up. I think, Madam Chair, let me leave others for my colleagues to ask.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm sorry, my voice is not good.
Sorry.
Because I'm interrupted during Christmas. First of all, I would like to thank the ED and his team for the great work they are doing, which can even be seen by anybody. Mr. E.D., of recent, we had this, the president was on his trek, moving around 192 kilometers. It so happened that he interfaced a lot with our farmers, and he was really very, very, very excited, and he was very happy with the improvement. And he asked farmers, are you getting these supplies? They all replied, they are getting them. In the presence of the Minister of Finance and the Minister for Presidency and the other ministers were there. He was impressed. And he came out with some pronouncements. I will not talk them here. However, maybe the Minister of Finance will tell you, or the Minister for Presidency, or I'll get time to come to your office and I tell you what pronouncements he made and what promises he told our people in Mubendi. Another issue.
Honorable, I was requesting you not to stress your voice further. Why don't you write? Then you give it to me.
Okay. Let me first finish.
I don't want my member to break down.
No, Madam, you need not to worry, our chairperson. Two, Mr. E.D., you have talked about these interventions which you are going to carry out in the northern region, like this you are giving them, these banana suckers and Albizia. It is a good intervention. But even these things you should think of also giving them to Central, East and West, because we also have sunshine in those areas. Another issue, I need to be educated. I do not understand the meaning of scaling. The meaning, scaling is the same as stopping.
Thank Thank you, Honorable. Honorable Zorodi Fruit Factory.
We are growing coffee in Soweto. And I also want to join you in thanking UCDA. At least is one of the arms of government that we see very visible on the ground, and they're doing some good work. So we'll support you where it's necessary. But I want to take you to page 3, where you talked about to increase yields per tree from 550 grams to 880 grams. I'm seeing a difference of about 300 or 220 grams only. And I'm wondering, on what basis are you looking at that? We are talking about 20 million bags. But when I see like you are narrowing it down, what is the reason for it? Then 2, the increase of domestic consumption from 360 to 450 grams per capita by 2025. I will need ED you elaborate strategically which activities you intend to do to achieve this, because it should be something that is measurable and achievable. So you need to tell us what is it that you are going to do. Are you going to partner with the coffee shops around here? Are you going to sign contracts with them, the hotels? What is it that you are going to do specifically to achieve this? And then on the issue of the overview of the budget performance as December 2019, page 4. I'm trying to recall last year when we were doing the 2019-2020 budget. We had an issue about external funding that you used to receive. And I don't know why this time I see there's 0 everywhere. You have not received any money completely. And what happened? What are the reasons? Lastly is on the unfunded priorities. There are too many, and for sure you are not going to get everything. Looking at what is in the basket. So what I would request you to do is point out 1 or 2 very critical ones, so that after the committee has come up with figures, we have to go and meet the budget committee and be able to convince them that, look, this is very crucial. So you may have to identify and tell us this and this, please, for the purpose of us achieving something out of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I will begin from where my colleague has stopped on the issue of this huge funding gap. Actually, for me, I was about to suggest that we have so many pastors, they should pray for us, because this gap is huge. Maybe a miracle can happen. But anyway, on a serious note, I don't know whether UCDA has some plan to raise some money in form of NCR. I don't know whether, I've not heard about that. Because we should then maybe sit down with the Minister of Finance and see the way forward. My other issue, Chair, is about this value chain. I think there's some figure allocated on that. It's on page 12 or something. So I would have loved that, because we are trying to help on this issue of value chain. But you know, we have two coffees. We have Robusta and Arabica. So which one are you focusing on? Is it both? Because we then want to know which allocation is going where. Maybe that's what the editor would like to know. So that my Masava and people from Konjo and who are in Arabica can also benefit from something there and then Robusta something. So you need to show us how you intend to divide for the two copies. And I used to know that we had some coffee, I think we still have some coffee research centers, research stations or research centers, and I've not seen much effort in revamping those research centers. I think most of them have been run down, and some of them are under threat of land grabbing. I don't know whether you have plans to do some work to recover in cases of issues of land grabbing and even reorganizing activities in the research center, because they do help at a regional level, for example. Because I know of Ginyanya, for example. I used to know of a small station at Bugusagi. I don't know whether it is still functioning, because these days when I pass there, I don't see any activity there. So those are the kind of research centers I'm talking about, and what plans you have to revamp them. You want to establish a training center in Jinja, and I'm wondering whether you would have not thought about covering one Jinja to cover maybe the side, eastern, and maybe one, because the country is too huge, so that you regionalize. You could have one in western or the other side, and then one in Jinja. So I don't know. Perhaps you could think about that. Thank you. Those are my.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Honorable Dakabela, and
Thank you, Chair, and the team from UCDA, led by the Managing Director. Chair, I really don't have much to say as such, but just two areas that members have already mentioned. Probably one is an observation, Mr. MD, on the issue of the target of the 20 million bags. I see this is 2020. And from the numbers that you have given, we have about 2.4 million bags. That's what we exported. I don't know how much is the total production, what level we are, so that we can compare it against the actual target of 20 million bags in 2025. You could give that information maybe for our consumption. But members, I think I've followed up the issue of the domestic areas. Chair, I don't know what we're going to do about this. It's all over the country, all over the media, and I think UCDA has already been taken to court on this. I know it's a lot of money, but probably as a committee we may have to do something about it. Get the minister here and make a lot of noise or otherwise. It's a problem. And the issues of domestic areas, particularly that affects directly the farmers, it's a very big thing. These people put in their small money and for years they don't get it back. They end up like that at the end of the day. I just wanted to emphasize that. Honorable Aloma has already brought it up very clearly. But I think as a committee we may need to really do something about these domestic areas. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable.
Chair, thank you. Mine is a very small one, Chair. It's just a clarification. Honorable Santa has pointed, but I only want to add something. The discrepancy appears to run from page 14 on the areas. This table 27, I see there unpaid arrears totaling 122 billion. But again, as Honorable Santa put it, when it comes to page 20, no, I'm confused. This is 27, so it's 27, maybe. Okay, there is a table up there on page 14, the first page, the first table. The arrears is 122 billion on the coffee and coffee seedlings. But again, on the page 15, though it's also 27, it is now 94.3. And yet again, as the Honorable put it on page 2, and on slide 28, it's 98. Maybe you need to clarify it. From 122 billion, how does it drop to 94, and again the oscillation? You need to clarify to us that one. And Chair, as my colleague put it, because there has been that talk that most of these areas are not real. I don't know how authentic, whether this has been properly audited, or do you have an audited audited record of these areas? Because there has been that complaint that some of these areas may not be real. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to thank the ED for this very good report too. Many of the things have been talked about by my colleagues, but I'll pick it up from this idea of the distribution of planting materials, plantlets and seeds, coffee seedlings. On page 5, you indicate that you distributed 778 plantlets and 129 million seedlings. My question is always, what is the survival rate of these distributions? Because it's so nice, it's easy, you can say anything, you can distribute anything, but we have been running around this country and find lots of these planting materials, maybe yours not, but the NADS planting materials have had a terrible survival rate. OWC. Yes, very bad. And then the budget for, the requisition for payment is so big. Are we getting value for money in these interventions? I'm interested in supporting your budget, because if you get in the markets, page 9, you say we've established a promotion of this market in China, and Chinese will drink all our coffee in one day at the rate we're producing it. I would like to support you to produce all the coffee you need, but the challenge is, many times I have tried it myself, and I guess many of us in this country will try to export stuff. I've got this embarrassment. You get a big opportunity to sell. The first time you sell good quality stuff in the volumes they want. Next time the volumes start falling, and then the quality gets lower, and we get kicked out of the market. I would like to support this UCDA to do what it should do to get in the market and maintain it. Unfortunately, I think UCDA alone will not have the capacity to do it. In Mubende, you have Kaweri Coffee. That big factory, that big thing. There is a way they are doing their business. You talk nicely about the cooperatives. I would like to see us supporting the cooperatives as much as we possibly can. Reorganize them. Talk to government to establish a bank where these cooperatives can borrow money locally, or even borrow money internationally. After all, they're going to get into the international market, so that they can support their activities across the value chain. They can have their own labs to do research in the type of plants we should be growing, or we can strengthen Nakori to produce the real thing that we think Uganda needs, and they can multiply them out there. You're talking about clonal coffee production, but I can tell you it could be tricky. We may not produce the clones we need. How are we supporting the private sector, the cooperatives, to produce their own? And you provide the regulatory information to make sure that we get the quality of stuff we need. Lastly, I just want to add my voice on my colleagues. We support UCDA to enter this market. And I wish there was a way to reconcile these big funding gaps. My friend here said maybe we pray to God that something happens, but I don't believe in that. We have to do something about it. What are we doing? As a committee, I wonder whether we can convince government, the budget committee, to give us, even if it was half of the 122 billion shillings. My friend here is on the budget committee. Can we try that? How do we achieve that? So all these things are beautiful. We want to get there. And ED, you know my position on coffee. We need it yesterday. We have to support it. But I think we have to look at how we can support the cooperatives across the board, across this country. My colleague didn't know that Busoga was producing some of the best coffee at one time. And there was a joke that before independence, Busoga government actually supported the British government's budget because they had a lot of money out of their coffee, out of their cotton. So we should go back to the basics and stop this, the way we are mismanaging our agriculture. We have so much potential, and I would like to see it happen. Lastly, going to the north, we can irrigate coffee, and there's knowledge of how to do it. And I wish I could see more of this. You have the dry land coffee varieties. Let us promote them. Let us irrigate them. Use drip irrigation. This idea of sprinklers is beautiful, but it's ineffective. So I would like to see how this can be done, and I want to say thank you very much for your presentation. I hope the budget committee will listen to the easier things we can do while we diversify and open up the coffee industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. ED, before I can allow you to respond to the concerns of members, I wanted to understand underfunded priorities. This is under production and productivity. We are talking of farmer registration with the indicative cost of 13 billion. Then on the next page, under market intelligence and development, you are talking of establishment of farmer register at the 20 million. I thought when you talk about farmer registration, that is already establishing a farmer register. Maybe we need clarification on that. Members have also talked about the issue of arrears, unpaid arrears to the suppliers of the seedlings. How are you going to go about this? Because when the minister appeared before us, he informed the committee about new directives to introduce coffee to other parts of the country, including each county in Kabong district. Now, with all these pending areas, how are we going to manage that new directive? And I thought I was even going to see the directive in your, maybe it hasn't reached, it is still between Ministry of Agriculture and UCDA. You haven't yet got any directive about introducing coffee in where. So those are some of the clarifications that I want to get from you. This is now your opportunity to respond, and if you could package it well so that we give time to Nagric also to interact with the committee. I know you always brief to the point. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. Particularly your interest in following up the presentations and the relations. I want to first apologize for the inconsistencies in the dates, 2018, 19, 20. This was really
Use the mic, drop.
This was an mission in where we had different dates of 2019-20. It was meant to be 2020-2021. It must have been movement of slides. And also I want to apologize in some inconsistencies in the figures, but I want to set the record straight. The areas has been a moving target. This financial year we got about to 40 billion to clear some of the areas, and therefore the 122 figure was a figure we had previously as of June, and I would like to apologize. The current figure is 94.3, which is the last figure. But this is a table I picked from our budget when we were presenting it. Let's take the final figure is 94, which is on page 27, 24.3. It is supposed to be 94.3 billion. I also would like to confirm that Minister of Finance has hired a private auditor, Ernst & Young. Since July last year, they've been working with us, looking at all the files, and therefore the figure we have here is the same figure which they have assessed and confirmed. Madam Chair, like I mentioned, we received this on Friday when I came to the office, and very quick in the morning I had to go through the presentation with the team, and therefore these are some of the errors that came up, but I can confirm this, a figure which has been confirmed by Ernst & Young.
Also, I don't know whether this is an error. What strategic objectives? Objective number 2. To increase the yield per tree from 550 grams to 880 grams. Is it 500 or it is 5,550? Or is it grams or it is something else? Because now if a tree is producing less than a kilo, then where are we going? Maybe it is also an error.
It cannot be any less than a kilo.
I remember when we were consulting, on average, they said our plants were producing Apollo, I think it was between 4 and 5 kilos, something like that. 4, 5, 3, from 3 to 5 on average. And now when we're talking about increasing 300 grams only, I don't think really it makes sense. There should be something wrong somewhere. I think somebody who typed this needs to check it through so that you correct those figures, because it doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Madam Chair, apologies, let me confirm, but regulate put it, some of the coffee disease resistant materials we recently released, their production is between 6 and 10 kilograms per tree, and therefore this figure could be different. Madam Chair, on the budget performance, there was an issue why we are not getting money from the EU of budget. I would like to confirm that the project has 3 components. One component is going through implementation through the International Trade Center. This is money which doesn't come to us directly, but activities are going on. We also have a component of which is through matching grants. We have already advertised this morning. We are actually, our teams have been evaluating the full proposals, and the amount of money is 3.85 million euros. This is coming through matching grants. Call for proposals, and the private sector have competed for this money. This money doesn't come directly to us, although it is a component under this project. So the project, the money which is supposed to come directly to us is 345, and we've been discussing about the work plan and budget for this money, and we hope this quarter the money is going to be released. The project is for 5 years. Some components are for 3 years, and for 5 years, this money I can confirm will be coming through our own budget, through Bank of Uganda, and while other components will be going through implementing agencies. I'm going page by page. Honorable Santa was asking whether we have many varieties or certain varieties which are promoting in a particular region and not the other. Arabica coffee is grown in all highland areas, like Rwenzori, like Elgon, like Zombo in West Nile, like highlands of southwestern Uganda. But in some areas like Rukunjiri, you have rural areas where you grow Robusta, but also in the same district you have highland areas where you grow Arabica. So we are informed by altitude when we are promoting these coffees. We first do profiling of the soils. We also test the coffees which come out from there. You may grow Robusta coffee in highland area, but it will not be good coffee. So when research is coming up with varieties, they first do trials, and you confirm both the quality and also the survivability of that coffee. So in northern Uganda, for example, we are looking at West Nile, Zombo, and parts of Nebi growing Arabica coffee, while the rest of northern Uganda is growing Robusta coffee. So in rural areas of northern Uganda, we are promoting the coffee wilt resistant Robusta coffee, while in highland areas, we are promoting Arabica coffee. In Zombo, we have, rather in Niramo, we have partnered with Uganda Prison Service. They have located up to 500 acres of land in an area overlooking the southern Sudan, where we are providing seedlings and we are providing promoting Arabica coffee. So this should not bring a bit of confusion. Where we are not providing the coffee wilt resistant material, those are highland areas we are continuing to promote the Arabica coffee. But in the central region, that is Uganda, the parts of Ankole and Busoga, we are not planning to do more distribution of airite coffee seedlings, because we think with the studies we've done with the independent consultants, we think the amount of seedlings we have already distributed should be able to give us the required volumes. What we require now is to look after those seedlings, good agronomic practices, water for production, the shade trees, and training farmers so that we can increase their productivity. We have a proposal in offering also support from the EU, where we are going to be supporting commercial farmers. For those of you who are familiar with the Sorog or the tree planting program that took place some years back, where commercial farmers who had a lot of land would plant and be compensated part of the money. This is an approach that is going to also take place with commercial. We are talking of those with the 10 acres, 20 acres and above. But the normal smallholder farmers, the support will be through the establishment of mother gardens. We see in Masaka, the greater Masaka farmers are buying already the clones by themselves. So the quality assurance will be from UCDA and Nakori, so that the materials are of traceable origin and of very good quality. Madam Honorable Santa mentioned about whether women are only going to be involved in hard labor, and when it comes to marketing they are not going to be beneficiaries. We have deliberately partnered with international organizations. In the UCDA, we are supporting International Women in Coffee Organization, which has chapters in all the regions. And all these women, actually starting from production, we are also supporting them in marketing. Some of the women farmers in cooperatives are already exporting coffee, and therefore we want to support them so that they are not only in production, but also the research. We are also as